Today, as I said, I'm speaking about tariffs and the chaos that has been caused by the introduction of those tariffs. As you know, there is absolutely nothing that is new about chaos in global trade. But what is new, and what has caught many by surprise, is a source of today's disruption. Few expected the recently elected American administration to pursue such extreme and aggressive tariff measures. And I'll return to the cause basic shortly. But first, let me try to put this in some perspective. As important as the American market is, it is not the only market. China's direct exports to the United States account for only about 15% of its total exports. If you add another 5% for parts and components which are assembled in other countries that originate from China, such as Vietnam, Mexico, and India, basically you can add another 5%. But still, it remains a fraction of the global trading picture. That said, no one can deny the impact that tariffs have had, disrupting global supply chains, basically shaking investors' confidence, and focusing businesses to have to adjust at some great difficulty and, of course, at some great cost. But trade, global trade, has never been a smooth nor a predictable journey. Since World War II, the world has seen wave after wave of economic and geopolitical turbulence, and still global trade has grown. We have weathered the 1997 financial crisis, the Asian financial crisis, the global financial crisis of 2008, the European debt crisis of 2010, and to say nothing about the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the Middle Eastern War. And yet, trade has continued to grow. Yesterday, you saw Chun Wei's graph about the growth of trade plateauing. That did not include services with which it needs to include. So why does trade continue to grow? Because trade is basically very resilient. And because countries, companies, and individuals adapt, they innovate, and most importantly, they benefit, which is, needless to say, hopefully mutual. Now I want to be clear. I do not minimize the current uncertainty caused by these tariffs, but I do urge you to place today's situation in its proper historical context. It is widely recognized that the American trade imbalances could not continue at the current levels. So correction was needed, and it has been needed for some time. That is not just an economic issue, it is a political issue, and in the case of the United States, a national security issue. But there is a legitimate debate. Are tariffs the right tool? Will they work, or will they hurt the very people they aim to protect? On these points, there is substantial disagreement. Even if the objective is not debated, the methodology is. The execution. And the way that these policies were announced, the way they were applied, the way they were communicated by the Trump administration has been chaotic and indeed very damaging. But today, so rather than just dwelling on the political confusion and economic, or the media hype and criticisms only, let's talk about what this means for global trade, for Vietnam, and for you, as professional leaders. First, trade has always been greater than the crisis that surrounded it. History supports this. The benefits of trade are real, they're deep, and they're very widespread. I have witnessed this personally for more than 50 years, working across all of Asia. And the principles remain. For trade to be substantial or sustainable, it must be mutually beneficial, to endure and to grow. Reciprocity is not just an idea. It is an essential objective. It may not be fully accomplished ever, it's not expected to be, but there has to be some level of reciprocity. So let us hope that the United States succeeds in restoring the level of reciprocity that they deem important to obtain, and obtain a balance. Because successful trade, and I would say to this, is never ever guaranteed. Trade is not a right. Trade is a privilege. One that must be earned, it must be nurtured, protected through cooperation. And cooperation in the international sphere has been indeed lacking. Second, Vietnam's resilience is totally remarkable. Since the war, this nation has built a powerful economy. It's drawn investments from around the world and become a central player in global trade. Many of you have been indeed part of that transformation. Today, both China and the United States seek to strengthen ties with Vietnam. Vietnam is in a unique and strategic position. Vietnam has proven itself to be a wise and skilled deal maker. It has always had to be. And that gives you and that gives Vietnam a real leverage in these very, very uncertain times. Third, and the most important in our discussion this morning, and this is about you and your businesses. Yes, tariffs are rising. Yes, supply chains are shifting. Yes, trust is under pressure. But this is not the end. This is a test. And how we respond will define us and define your companies. Chaos is absolutely not a sentence. It is a signal. A chance to lead, to adopt, and to build again, and there will be indeed opportunities which will be available to each and every one of you. That's if you see them and if you can act upon them. So, what do we need to do? As alumni, as managers, as business leaders, we must stay focused. Don't get lost in the noise. We must protect optimism. There's no reason not to be optimistic, because hope is contagious, and you will reflect that hope in your organizations, in your families, and of course, within yourself. We must show resilience. Bend like the bamboo, strong, flexible, and unbroken. We must also be fair in our dealings and seek to promote basically deals which are mutually beneficial, because those are the only ones that are really sustainable. And I believe we must share and mentor others and invest in the next generation and its leaders. And by doing so, you build your own agency, you build your own strength. We must value relationships. Even in the digital age, personal contact and trust still matter. And last evening was a very, very good example. This meeting is a very good example of trying to ensure that takes place within the alumni. So basically, in closing, chaos will not disappear. And I would suggest to you that the introduction of AI to trade and to operations and to management is going to be chaotic for many. So getting ahead of that is very important. But every crisis also brings opportunity, as we all well know. If we lead with transparency, we lead with fairness, we lead with trust, trade will indeed flourish. So I think that the record should show that both the foundation and our alumni, we did not retreat from these crises or these issues. We stood tall, we worked together, and we not only survived the chaos, we grew stronger and more resilient. Thank you.